Hi guys and gals, Jackie with Famished Farm, and this week we're back in the kitchen for another mini pantry challenge. And the main thing that we're working on this week is our recipe stash. We're trying to reduce the number of recipes that we've got to test and see which ones we want to add eventually into our usual rotation of recipes. And we made 3 new recipes, including a meatless Monday chickpea taco, a copycat rice-a-roni that we made into a casserole, and blackened shrimp bowls, although we just put them on plates. But all 3 recipes were very good. We were also able to use flaxseed and nutritional yeast this week, so it was a very successful recipe week. So the first recipe up was a homemade chicken rice-a-roni, and I actually started with 2 different recipes, and I ended up not using the recipe that was meant to be used in the Instant Pot. So the main difference between the 2 was that the Instant Pot recipe called for chicken stock, whereas the other recipe called for chicken bouillon. And last week we made our nutritional yeast chicken bouillon, and so that was the main reason we wanted to try this recipe. Seasoning wise, they were similar, so I feel like this one, just for my purposes, worked out better. The next recipe up was our blackened shrimp rice bowls, and that was out of Southern Living magazine, August 2022. And we had this tonight actually. Rod grilled it for me. Super easy to put together. We had a little bit of chopping, but really not too much. Celery, it really was, all these recipes this week were pretty much dump and go. So not if you're looking for easy ones that won't take a lot of time and still are really good, I highly recommend any one of these, with a couple caveats on the next recipe. So this one I'll kind of go over while we're cooking. I did have to make a couple changes. The recipe called for a poblano, which I had an open container of green chilies in the fridge, so I was just gonna substitute that. But what happens, I opened up the green chilies and they had gone bad. So I instead just put a couple spoonfuls of my home canned green tomato salsa verde, and it was really good. And in fact, we've got a little bit of the sauce left for that, and we're gonna have taco salads, I think, tomorrow night, and we're going to use that sauce on the taco salads. So that was very good. And finally, the meatless Monday was a chipotle chickpea tacos. Now, I do not have chipotle chili powder, so I just substituted my regular chili powder, and it was really good with a couple modifications. As written, the meat, which is chickpeas, was pretty dry, and I guess we like more of a saucy meat in our tacos. So I ended up adding some salsa verde again, and almost a pint of, maybe a cup and a half of my home canned crushed tomatoes. And it was very good other than that addition. So anyway, we'll get to the recipes, and again, easy, throw them together pretty quick. You wouldn't even have to do a lot of meal prep for any of these. So I was really grateful for easy recipes this week because it's been nice outside. So I've been spending lots of time in the garden, and today was 84, and I worked basically from, I guess I was out there right about 8 o'clock, maybe between 8 and 8:30, and didn't get done until 3:30. So it was a long day outside, but very productive. But it was nice having a quick and easy. I mean, the shrimp today was 2 minutes on each side on the grill, so big win when it comes to getting dinner ready. So anyway, thanks for being here, guys, and leave your comments down below, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for being here. Homemade chicken rice-a-roni, a copycat recipe by plainchicken.com. And we're going to start by melting our butter in the skillet. And we haven't had rice-a-roni in decades, but I think I recall that you were supposed to brown the vermicelli in the butter or margarine before you added the rice. So that's what I'm doing here. If I'm misremembering, don't quote me, but do whatever you think is right. The recipe calls for just adding both the pasta and the rice and cooking until lightly brown. Once I've got the color on it I go ahead and add the 2.5 cups or 2 3/4 cups water. And then I'll throw that back on the heat. And then the recipe calls for 4 teaspoons of chicken bouillon. This particular homemade bouillon that I'm using, I should have used 4 tablespoons because it is not as powderized as the other chicken bouillons would be. So that's my mistake. Then a 1/2 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of my home dried parsley, a little bit of garlic powder, and I'm going to add some of my flaxseed, I remember. So I add 2 tablespoons. Couldn't even tell they were in the recipe. So it's a good addition to any type of casserole. So we're just going to stir this up and get the lid back on it. And it says you're going to cook for 15 to 20 minutes. I put my timer on for 10 minutes. And then I decide to add my pre-cooked chicken, and I'm going to give that a stir before I put the lid back on. Now, when I'm stirring this, I've decided that it's going to be a little dry, so I go ahead and add another 1/2 cup, I believe, of water, just to make sure that everything doesn't stick, mainly that it will steam, the rice will steam. And hey, we've got some thunder in the background if you can hear that. I'm going to taste it, and I can tell that the rice is going to need some more time, so which it would. It's only 10 minutes cooking. So we'll put the lid back on it once that additional water is in, and then you're just going to cook this until it's absorbed. I remember a casserole I used to make with this homemade or rice-a-roni, and I put slivered almonds on the top of it. So I'm checking for seasoning. Decide it needs a little salt, so add a little bit of salt. And then I'll stir that together and put those sliced almonds over the top. This was delicious. It made enough that we've put 1/2 of it in the freezer for another night. Now I will add the additional chicken bouillon to the leftover portion, and I'm sure it will just be fantastic. Yikes! This blackened shrimp rice bowl was from the Southern Living August 2022 edition or issue, and it was delicious. We used 12 ounces of extra large shrimp, and you're just going to coat it in some spices and then put it on the grill. This has chili powder, cumin, garlic, and black pepper. I just mix it in a bowl, and then it does say to skewer them. Instead of putting them on skewers, I decide just to use my basket because these shrimp are big enough they're not going to fall out of the basket. And you are going to drizzle these with olive oil, which I forget to do before I put the thing on, but it doesn't matter. They're still going to get a little bit of olive oil on them. And then I put them in the fridge because we're not quite ready to put them on the grill. And sorry for the balding head there. I was hot from working outside, didn't put my cap on. While I'm showing you how I'm going to slice up my avocado, I do just one avocado. I realize I've forgotten to tape the making of the sauce. Now the sauce called for a roasted poblano chili, which I was just going to use green chilies out of the fridge, which turned out to be bad. So I grabbed my jar of green tomato salsa verde that I home can, added that to 2/3 cup of Greek yogurt, plain Greek yogurt, a little parsley, a little onion powder, and some salt, and mix that up. I just do it by hand. The recipe says to use the blender. You can see I'm done slicing the avocado, and about that time Rod brings in the shrimp. So we just throw those in a bowl. And these 12 ounces of shrimp, Rod and I will eat with no leftovers. And this is kind of what our spread is going to look like. We've got the shrimp, then we've got corn out of the freezer, a can of black beans, and rice out of the freezer. And then here's that delicious sauce that I'm going to use again tomorrow night. This was delicious. Chipotle chickpea tacos. The recipe calls for sauteing the chickpeas with olive oil in a pan. I decide that I like my tacos, my chickpea tacos, crushed. I like them mashed, so I use a potato masher. You could easily do this in your food processor if you don't mind cleaning the bowl. So here I am, potato masher, and this does take a couple minutes. You have to kind of clean the masher off every couple of sticks, but it's worth it. It just gives it a more meat-like appearance, which we appreciate. That's going to go into the pan, and we're going to just cook the chickpeas till they're slightly golden, which I don't know that I ever achieved that, but I did cook those for a few minutes. And then we're going to add some soy sauce, which the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of low sodium soy sauce. And this was a great addition because it did kind of darken the chickpeas up, so it gave them a more meat-like appearance. We're also gonna add chili powder, not chipotle chili powder, a little garlic powder, and then you're gonna toast those spices in with the chickpeas for a few minutes until they become nice and aromatic. And that's basically it, except when I go to taste it, it's really dry. So I've got just shy of a pint of crushed tomatoes, and I'm deciding how many to add, and then I finally just say I'll just add the whole can. And I will give it a taste and just make sure that I'm on the right track. And I decide, oh, I could use a little of salsa verde, which is coming in very handy. And that makes it perfect. We get that stirred up and give it another taste test, and it's perfect. The recipe does not call for any other additions, but of course, we like our tacos with some well, the tomato's already in it, so I don't need to worry about that, but some shredded cheddar. We'll get some sour cream. I happen to have some, just a little bit of lettuce left over, some green onions, and that's about it, I guess, for our chipotle chickpea tacos. It was very good with the addition of the moisture in the sauce. And Rod likes crunchy shells, so he gets the corn tortillas. I like flour, so I get some tortillas warmed up in a skillet, and it was great. Homemade chicken rice-a-roni was great for my pantry challenge. I was able to use nutritional yeast and flaxseed. And this was a really simple recipe. Basically, you had to break up some vermicelli, and other than that, everything was, I guess I had to cook a couple cups of chicken and cut that up, but I already had that done. So all in all, this was a very easy recipe and very like the original. It took, you could do it in under 20 minutes easily. So I did modify this recipe for the blackened shrimp rice bowls. I did not use ears of corn. I just used frozen corn out of the freezer. And I didn't roast a poblano chili pepper. Ended up using salsa verde. So other than that, this came together very easily. The sauce was delicious and quick to make. The shrimp, you just coat them with the spices. You can skewer them. I used a grill basket instead. And serve it up. We happened to have rice in the freezer also, which definitely helped. And black beans and avocado. This is pretty, isn't it pretty? And it was delicious too. Part of cooking for a family is knowing when you need to make adjustments or modifications to a recipe. And before I even made this, I knew that I was going to mash the chickpeas and that it would probably be dry for us. So I had put in the margins to add water, tomato juice, or salsa verde. So that was kind of on my radar. I also added that I wanted to add tomato, cheddar, sour cream, guac, and iceberg lettuce. That was just to make them like we would like them. So this was a good, for me, beginner meatless recipe. And as we made it with our additions of the 1.5 cups of crushed tomatoes, 2 tablespoons of salsa verde, that meat mixture was really good.